Greetings, friends, and welcome to the Burgers and Fries podcast, your Bob's Burgers companion podcast. It is I, Ryan. Brian's not with us this week, unfortunately. He decided to go and die, or his voice died. One of the things. He might be back next week. But yeah, we had this all planned out where we were going to do the two-part season 4 finale together, and we watched it, and then Brian got sick. So I said, okay, Brian, we'll try again a different day to record. And he didn't get better, and he got worse, actually. So now here we are, last minute, as always, scrambling to get a podcast out to our fine listeners. And I got a great friend of the podcast here to join us today. It's not somebody from the show, but it's a longtime friend of ours. Her name's Molly. So we actually got a female on the show for once. How you doing today? Or tonight, I suppose.
I'm doing fantastically, thank you.
Yeah,
thank you for having me.
Well, of course. We need to get somebody on here, and you were one of the higher choices, just because I know. Obviously, we've had plenty of conversations about Bob's Burgers in the past, so I know you're definitely a fan.
And a girl, that helps.
Exactly. We need a little female presence on the show every now and then because Bryan and I get kind of. We get a little too manly every once in a while, so it's good to have a different perspective too. Because Bryan and I know each other so well on the episodes and how we can kind of make our cases and our arguments for certain likes and dislikes because we know what each other enjoys. But it's nice to get a second opinion on here, a different opinion. We've had Keisuke on to review an episode. We had Jeff come on to review an episode, so it'll be nice to have another person on here to do that. But if you just want to. Just give a brief overview of like what your experience getting into Bob's Burgers was. I know Bryan and I have talked before where we didn't really get into it until about season 2 or 3, but everybody's story is different. So I'd like to hear yours real quick, and you can share it with the audience.
Yeah, my sister had me watch an episode of Bob's Burgers, and I was I don't remember which episode it was, but I didn't really get into it. The animation kind of bothered me, I think, in the beginning. But then I started watching Archer, and then since H. John Benjamin has the voice in both, kind of brought me back over there. And then there's additionally more voice crossovers. But then they had that the Archer Bob's Burger crossover episode, and that I was sold after that. It's like, all right, I love them both.
That's actually really funny. I was talking with somebody else today, and they said, hey, did you know that there was an Archer Bob's Burgers crossover episode? And I said, well, technically it was like a 3-minute crossover, but yeah, there was a crossover episode.
It counts.
But yeah, Bryan and I have said plenty of times at the beginning of the show, the animation was not great, but what's good about the show is that they learned and evolved and they got better with their animation. So we've always talked about that, how it is tough watching the first season and even the second season. Just knowing how much better the show gets, it is kind of challenging to watch the older episodes and appreciate that they were just starting out. But they've definitely, they're 9 seasons in now, so they've definitely found what works for them.
Right. It's the same thing with most shows. If you look at, Simpsons or South Park, watching season 1 of South Park is like, you're watching, paper cutouts. It feels like stop motion compared to what they've got now.
Yeah, it's well, and what's funny about South Park, what's really unfortunate, unfortunate, I actually do enjoy it. They on the Hulu version, they've actually went through and they redid every episode and put it through their computer that they do for the new episodes. So every episode now is HD remastered. So while it does lose some of the charm of what the original show looked like, I know that they feel better about how it's just now been preserved in like a digital quality.
Right.
But But it's
they just
jarring.
have to do it with the Muhammad episode now.
Yeah, they didn't. Yeah, they won't. You can't even find that one. That one, you're stuck with we'll be stuck with the low version quality of that for the rest of forever.
Yeah, I know.
But it's just funny to watch older South Park episodes on Hulu and hear the voices and how different they are, but then watch the animation and you're like, man, that something doesn't look right or feel right, and it's because they do look different. But that's for a different podcast. That's our South Park episode podcast that will come out next year. But yeah, this is January 3rd, first episode of the new year, and Brian's not with us, so it sucks to be him. But we got somebody way better to do this one. It is season 4, episode 21. It's the first part of the 2-part season finale, which is the first time that the show will do the season finale in a 2-part. And I think it's the only time that they do a 2-part season finale, but it is not the only 2-part episode because we're going to be getting into season 8 a long time from now. But there's the Bleakin episode, which is 2 parts as well. But this is Wharf House, or How Bob Saves / Destroys the Town Part 1. So this episode aired on May 11th, 2014, was written by Nora Smith, directed by Bryan Loshivo, and the synopsis for the episode: motivated by the promise of a new beachside burger joint, Bob conspires with Felix to convince Mr. Fishodor to sell Wonder Wharf. Meanwhile, Tina protests the destruction of the Wharf's carousel by chaining herself to it. So, do you remember anything about this episode before watching it? Like, before you watched it, was there anything that you remembered about it, or was some of it kind of brand new to you? Or
I remember the two things that I remember specifically standing out to me were just Fanny in general.
Sure.
Like the Mr. Dance Floor song is terrible but super catchy for some reason.
Yeah, we'll definitely get to Fanny because that whole thing's a great presence. This episode has a plethora of guest voices. We'll get to that in the actual review, but just some big hitters here. Kevin Kline comes back as Mr. Fishodor. Zach Galifianakis comes back as Kelvin. Bill Hader comes back as Mickey. Obviously, David Herman does 160 voices. And then Jordan Peele's the big one, coming back to do Fanny, which is really awesome.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, we'll talk about that when we get out of that. So I know you already watched it, Molly. The rest of you guys, if you haven't watched it yet, go ahead and pause the podcast here. Come back and join us after the bump, and we'll be back with Wharf House.
Oh, Felix also bought me these.
What?
These. Blink, blink, blink.
Your eyeballs?
The lashes.
Oh, they're beautiful.
Yeah, they're weasel fur.
I know it.
Oh, and when the condos go in, Felix is going to build me a recording studio.
What?
Also a nightclub, because I have a really good voice, so I'm going to sing at the nightclub.
I love nightclubs and singing. Sing me a song.
Okay.
She's gonna sing.
Who's that knocking on my door? Ooh, it's Mr. Dance Floor. Everyone is looking fancy. Things are about to get dancy.
Oh my God, I just almost started dancing.
Thank you.
And we're back. That was part 1, Wharf House, or How Bob Saves / Destroys the Town Part 1. So, first impressions, Molly. Bryan normally goes through and kind of gives his just quick what he thought of the episode. I'm going to start with you this time because obviously you're the special guest. What did you think of the episode?
Overall, I liked it.
Okay.
I like that there's a few new characters in here to change it up a little bit, or at least, kind of, getting all over the board, a little bit of everybody in there.
Sure.
There was some, I was a little sad that there wasn't more Gene randomness in this one.
Okay.
Because I and Louise too. Those two are kind of my, I don't know, spirit animals,
Sure.
whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But I mean, Fanny's character kind of comes in and does all of these random things like, we just went shopping. I got 7 bras. And
I love how excited Linda is about that. Linda's just so excited. Whoa, 7 bras.
Oh, excuse me. Yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of that kind of goofy, nonsense,
Sure.
coming from her side. But I guess that was the only thing I really missed in this episode.
Yeah, actually, and you're the first person to come on the podcast to have a special place for Gene in their heart. Because Bryan's always been big on Louise, and our guests have always kind of been big on Louise and Tina. And I, of course, am a huge Teddy fan and regular size Rudy fan. I mean, I like most of the cast, but those two are the ones that I enjoy watching the most. But it's good to hear that Gene gets some love here and there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a pretty solid episode. It's a pretty solid episode to set up the part 2.
Yeah.
Because they kind of give you at the very end, they kind of give you that fake ending. Like, it sounds like everything's going to get wrapped up. And if you were kind of coming into this blind, not knowing that there was a part 2, you're looking at it, you see that Bob and Mr. Fishodor are talking, we saved the wharf, everything's going to be okay. And then you're thinking that's the end of the episode, but then here comes, Felix with a gun, and he's like, I'm not going to let you guys ruin this. And then it cuts to to be continued.
Yes. I think that's what I really liked about this episode, just because it's a 2-parter. Usually, you really have to tie them together to make any sense of anything. But this episode can stand on its own.
Yep.
I think just fine. I mean, just with that little, twist at the end to make way for that part 2 piece. But, if you take off that twist, you could have a full episode and it would be just fine.
Yeah. There's nothing in this episode that says, "Oh, hey, you have to wait for part 2."
Right.
And that, and that's different than the Bleakin, which I hate talking about future episodes because we're not even close to being there yet. But the Bleakin is not one that stands on its own. You literally have to watch those together because they aired together. So Bleakin part 1 and 2 is literally just one large episode. This was a week-to-week thing, so they actually had to make it kind of stand on its own. So when it's in syndication, when it's being watched after the fact, you can still enjoy it. And then the second episode, which we'll get to next week, should recap it and just kind of say, hey, this is what happened last week. Now this is what's happening this week.
Yeah.
So firstly, normally we start off, we talk about the meta jokes, the gags, all the fun stuff. And this episode does not have any of those. This is the first episode, and so far the only episode up to this point that does not have the opening with the exterminator or with the store next door, and we only have one burger because really this episode takes place all in one day, which it doesn't feel like it does, but it does. But basically, and so some of the timing in this episode is really weird, and we'll get to that when we talk about the whole episode. But the burger of the day, just so we don't forget it, because I always forget to do these things. The burger of the day is the saffron saff-off burger, and it's one of the few times also in this episode where one of the ancillary characters, actually mentions the burger and talks about it. Felix says, "Do you think people in this neighborhood really care about your burger? They don't even know what saffron is." And so I think that was kind of neat that they did that. They actually acknowledged the fact that he has this burger. It's not just there for our enjoyment. That's part of what his plan is, to have this happen.
It was a good way to tie in that kind of like that elite spice or that elite piece to burgers, moving from the burger joint to Bob's Burgers on the beach.
Bob's Bistro. What does he call it? Bob's Bistro Burgers and Fries. I think is what he calls it.
Yeah.
So so he so I mean, the episode starts out right a little bit before this. It's starting out in at the wharf. It actually starts out right at the wharf. So it's right in the middle of the action. Mr. Fishoder's right in the front of the wharf, handing out flyers. Basically, he's like, "Come on in." He looks like he's peddling for something. We don't know quite what it is yet. Then he sees the kids come on over, and they are also with their flyers. But to mention a good Gene line, what you said, he said, "We're supposed to be handing out the flyers. But no one's biting, so we're about to give them all to our old friend Gary Trashcan." So he's
laughing. Even when you say it, it's funny.
Yeah, Gary Trashcan. So, but Fishoder's handing out flyers because the wharf's not doing well, and he's trying to drum up business to go. He says that it's not going under, but it looks like it is. He's opened up an old ride again, the Screamacane, and they got coupons for those so they could go ride it. But yeah, he's trying to just get people to come to the wharf, and it's kind of weird. We're not sure why he's doing that, but he is. But then that's kind of where it goes back into the restaurant then, and we see Bob and Linda in the restaurant. Felix and his arm candy come on in to it. What does he call it? He says his dirty, flirty little squeeze thing. And so she's in there with Felix, and I like here Linda mentions says I'm gonna call you little fish because you're a little fish. But yeah, so they're in there and they don't ever come in. This is where you had mentioned that Fanny's like, "I've just bought 7 bras." And of course, Linda's ecstatic about that. And so Felix is here to proposition Bob. And Bob's not having it. He's like, "I don't want to hear it. I don't want to do anything about it. I don't want to help you." He doesn't even know what it is, and he just doesn't want any part of it because he's aware of the Fishoders and their plans and how they work. And what do they What are they trying to build?
You asking me?
I am asking you. What are they trying to build? What does
Condos,
Felix want to
rich
build?
people condos.
To build rich people condos
Bring
because
in
he
that
wants.
condo money.
Yeah, he wants to turn that old town into a thriving now town. Run down old town into a thriving now town is what he says.
The recording studio and a nightclub.
Yeah, I love dancing. And so then he's trying to, Bob doesn't want to have any part of it. He's like, I don't want to do this. There's plenty of memories on the wharf. And they all kind of go through the memories. We'll come back to that in a bit. And Felix accidentally says one of Bob's secret fantasies about what he would like to do with his life. And would you like to say what that was and explain it?
The bistro, his upscale bistro on the beach.
Yeah. Do you remember the name that Felix made up? It's not the one that Bob would do, but it's the name that Felix gave.
I don't remember what it is.
He calls it Bob's Bistro on the Beach with the burgers.
With the burgers, yes. But Bob's not sure he's going to call it that because he likes.
No, he's got a different name, and we'll get to that in the song. Yeah. So he's like, do people appreciate Saffron? Do they appreciate what you're doing here? Because he's trying to get under Bob's skin a little bit, and Felix actually doing a pretty good job of it. Just a little bit. He still doesn't want any part of it, but he's. He knows what makes Bob angry. He knows what makes him tick. He knows he knows that Bob's like a burger artist, and as Mr. Fischoeder said in season 1, a beef artist, a beef artist. and Felix knows that, so he's trying to get in a little bit of that. He's like, people don't appreciate your work here, and you could go down to the waterfront, to the condos, and open up your bistro. And so now so he's trying to convince Bob, and then he pulls him into the bathroom, and they're going to start talking about it in the bathroom apparently. And
so ridiculous.
Yeah. So I'm gonna continue on with the Bob story because we'll come back to the kids. We'll do A story first, then B story. So then they're in the bathroom. Apparently Felix is going to the restroom. They're talking about everything that's going on. And I love this little bit of continuity in this episode. He's in there using the bathroom, and he goes, "God, I just love this bathroom that I built for you." Because that was the first appearance of Felix, was when he was building that bathroom, because the hot brown water. Felix loves hot brown water.
Terribly. Doesn't he, I forget what he did in that episode. Did he put in 2 sinks or?
So, I mean, you can kind of see it in the background here, but he basically built a sink and a toilet, but they look almost identical. You don't know which one is which.
That's what it is.
And it's all black and everything, and he has that big unveiling, and they do the song.
Yeah, it's like a dungeon in there. Like
kind of. It's a very flashy black, like marble, almost obsidian style bathroom.
Yeah. Obsidian is perfect.
I would be intimidated in there.
I would feel comfortable to, use the restroom in there.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's funny because Bob says that he's like, people sometimes just come here to use the restroom, and I make them buy a coffee to use it. But that was an episode we did a couple weeks ago. But yeah, so Felix is trying to convince Bob that he needs to convince Kelvin to sell, and he said that he won't listen to me, but he'll listen to you. And I think it's because
of his arm hair.
Yes, his arm hair. It looks just like our Papa's arm hair. It's so gross.
It's such a weird relationship with that arm hair.
It is, and they talk about it in the episode a couple times. Kelvin talks about it too. That he talks about how it reminds him of the arm hair, and then then Kelvin's like, "What if you were to brush it this way?" And Bob's like, "Well, do you like it that way? Because I'll do it if you want to. For the condos, I'll do it." But yeah, so then he essentially makes a deal with the devil. Felix and him sign off. He's got to try to distract Mr. Fischoeder for the afternoon, while he's taking in basically investors around to try to convince them to buy up the land to make condos. So he and Linda are thinking of a plan of how to convince Mr. Fischoeder to get out of the house for a bit. And they come up with take your landlord to lunch day, which everybody loves lunch, apparently. And Mr. Fischoeder loves lunch.
Fischoeder loves lunch.
So they're going to take him out to lunch and distract him for a while. And they're going to go to Kingside Island for that. So they have to take a ferry and everything. So that kind of gets them way out of the way of the wharf. So this is where the timeline gets kind of weird, because it is all the same day. Because this is just later in the afternoon, but it feels like it was a day later or something. Or whenever this happened. So it's still that same day. They get Mr. Fischoeder to come to lunch. They're on their way driving, and they see Fanny. And Linda's like, "Hey, Fanny, you want to come to lunch with us? Come on in." And then so they're in the back of the car, and Linda's whispering to Fanny, but she's doing that really loud whispering that people do. You know, when they're trying to make sure that they are heard, but pretending that they're not heard.
They can't understand us.
Yeah, she goes. She just it's so weird because she's like, they can't hear me. I'm whispering, and just
Bob's like, we can hear you.
Do you want to hear a secret? We're doing the plan. And Bob's like, "Oh God, we can hear everything you're saying." And Fish is like, "There is no take your landlord to lunch day, is there?" And he goes, "Damn, I was excited. Landlords never get to do any fun stuff."
Take your landlord to lunch day?
Yep.
And you want to go to King's Head Island?
It's your special day. Benny! You want to come to lunch?
Okay.
Hop in.
Hi, how are you?
Oh, what'd you get?
It's a skirt, but I'm gonna wear it as a dress so you can see my butt.
Butt dress. I like it.
Butt dress, golly.
Psst, Fanny, want to hear a secret? We're doing the plan.
Huh?
Felix's plan to get Fischoeder away from the wharf.
Len?
He doesn't have any idea. He doesn't have a clue.
Linda, we can hear you.
What? No, it's girl talk.
They can't understand us.
Oh my God.
Bob?
Yes.
There is no take your landlord to lunch day, is there?
Oh, maybe they can understand us. A little bit.
Damn, I was really excited about it. Landlords never get any fun stuff.
Aw.
So they end up getting to the island, and obviously they're trying to describe to him, "Hey, that you should do this. We should sell the condos." He doesn't want to do it, because he just, I don't know. He doesn't really. He just doesn't doesn't want to do it. He doesn't want to sell it ever.
Well, usually if it's something that's like Felix's idea, he's kind of like, that's probably dumb. I don't want to do that. Like, Felix can't do anything right. So maybe it was just something that was like almost a deterrent simply because it was something that, a crazy harebrained scheme that Felix came up with.
Sure. Yeah, I know at the beginning of the episode, at the beginning of the episode, I know Felix says that he doesn't, that Kelvin says he doesn't want to sell it because Felix goes, because he's a big dumb wiener. He thinks he can fix it with a few renovations. So I think the whole thing is he just doesn't want to sell for the most part. And again, it's like you said, definitely perfectly. It's that whole brother dynamic. He just doesn't care since it wasn't his idea.
Right.
He doesn't want Felix to have all the credit about it. So, right. So Felix puts him up to kidnapping. So then he's like, I really know that I don't want to do this. But then Bob has a plan, kind of, to try to convince him. And it's, I guess, the second original song of the episode, if you want to count Mr. Dance Floor as the first one. I
do really like that this episode has a whole lot of music in it, just random sing-songy things. And I mean, even in the very beginning, when Felix and Fanny show up at the restaurant, Linda's singing a little ditty about the big fish and the little fish.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Linda's always got a good song in her heart for these things. So then they sing the song Nice Things Are Nice. And it's kind of a nice little round because it's Bob convincing Fish not wanting it. We get Fanny and Linda talking. We get the kids singing. in the song about their plight of the carousel, which we'll get to after the story. And then they share a moment in the restaurant, and I guess it convinces Mr. Fish Odor to sell. He's like, all right, we can sell. You've convinced me by having this song. And part of it is the hair, the arm hair.
I think that's like 75%.
And so then they get back to King's Head Island, and Felix is already, showing developers around, but then there's a commotion that's going on at the wharf, and it turns out that it's the kids' commotion, what they're doing. So let's go back to the B story, because this is where everything converges.
Lady Big Nose, no! Mr. Down There Hair! Henry Human Feet!
His feet were more human than mine!
Boss, I don't know what to do here.
Listen, little girl, Mr. Fish Odor wants us to take down a carousel. No one rides it anymore, possibly because they're put off by the deformed horses. This one makes me a little sick.
I don't care about your facelift. Nobody touches Mr. Goiter.
He's a hideous delight!
Oh, man! Tina, got an idea. Be right back.
Okay. Oh no, Dr. Big Butt.
So during the B story, we talked about how... So if we go back to the B story, we talked about how Mr. Fish Odor was handing out flyers, and the kids were handing out flyers. They get 3 tickets for the Scream-a-Cane. And in the Scream-a-Cane, they end up deciding they're going to go. But the only reason that they're going to go to the Scream-a-Cane, the only reason Tina wants to go to the Scream-a-Cane is because they promised that they would get to go ride the carousel afterwards. Because they want to go visit, she wants to go visit Mr. Goiter, which is the funniest name for a carousel horse. I mean, there's a whole bunch of funny names in this episode.
But if you look at the horse,
it does have a goiter. It is correct.
Giant goiter.
Yeah, I mean, that's the funny thing about this carousel is that they're all deformed horses, and one of the construction guys are like, all these horses freak me out, and they all are pretty gross. But Mr. Goiter, for a reason, it's just got this huge problem with its neck, this big old thyroid issue.
It looks like it's in pain.
Yeah. So, but they're gonna go to the Scream-a-Cane, and Mickey's working there. So we get another appearance of Mickey, good old Bill Hader coming in here to do Mickey. And he's now working at the Scream-a-Cane. Previously, he was working at one of the games at the spinny wheel or something, the tilt-a-whirl spinner or whatever. It looks like the tea. I mean, it's kind of like the teacups, I guess. But he was previously working there, and I guess now he's been upgraded to Scream-a-Cane.
Well, he is up for Employee of the Month, so
he is, and I like how he calls them Burger Babies. Hey, Burger Babies. Because he thinks just kind of like Teddy does. He thinks that his last name is Burger, so it's Bob Burger. So it's Burger Babies. So they want to get on the Scream-a-Cane, but Mickey's like, hey, you can't ride this, Louise. You're a couple inches too short. And Louise is like, come on, Mickey, what's a couple inches between friends? And then that's when he says, I'm up for Employee of the Month. We get to pick our stuffed animals, and I got my eye on the banana wearing pewter shorts. So Louise is upset, and she's going to try. Can I blame Mickey or can I blame Louise?
Oh, Mickey, a shorts wearing banana?
Well, I totally want a shorts wearing banana, but Mickey, Mickey's always been the cause. Mickey's such a weird character in the sense that there are some times where he wants to do things that are iffy of the law. Sometimes he wants to do things that are definitely against the law. And then sometimes he's actually following his orders. Like when it comes to work, I feel like Mickey is a very good worker.
Yeah.
Because when he worked for the restaurant, he was a perfect restaurant worker. And the only thing that was the problem with the restaurant was he was pickaxing in the basement, a la Shawshank Redemption, to try to burrow back in the bank to steal the money because they can't arrest him twice for double jeopardy, which that's not how that works.
Nope.
And then in the ambergris one, he was working hard at the ambergris place, but then it came to selling the ambergris. He was okay with doing that, and then he wanted his cut of the ambergris to get a tank to go rob the bank, and then he was going to go straight. So Mickey Tank Bank.
One more.
Yeah, exactly. The one more. This is my one more, and then I'm done. And then here, he's definitely following the rules. It's all about, I'm going to listen because my boss says I can't do it. I'm going to be Employee of the Month. So that'll come back, actually. The fact that he doesn't want to do it because he's up for Employee of the Month. That'll come back, actually, later in the episode. So since they can't ride the Scream-a-Cane, they go to the carousel. And Tina notices a sign that says it's carousel's closed. It's, going to be torn down for a much more thrilling ride, exciting ride, or whatever they say, and she's very upset. So she ducks under all the tape and stuff, all the stuff that's blocking it, and she runs right up to Mr. Goiter. And the sledgehammer guys start working. They start breaking all the horses. And she's very upset because she's like, "You don't touch Mr. Goiter. He's my horse." Because you never forget your first horse love, according to Gene. So I got some of the names down of the horses, and I want to know your opinion on which one is your favorite horse name, other than Mr. Goiter, because that one's probably the best one. But there was 4 other horse names that were ended up in this episode.
And only one stands out to me.
We had Lady Big Nose. Well, we didn't really see some of the other ones. We saw Mr. Down. We didn't see Lady Big Nose.
No.
We did see Mr. Down There Hair.
Yes.
And then there was Henry Human Feet, which we also saw.
Yep.
And then Dr. Big Butt we didn't see.
Dr. Big Butt.
Dr. Big Butt.
I don't know what he looks like, but I have this image in my head, and he's amazing.
I would think of Mr. Goiter without the goiter, but a very large badunka trunk.
Right, like a goiter in the butt.
Ugh, gross. I suppose. Yeah, I like Dr. Big Butt. I think Harry Human Feet, at least the way that one looked, that was creepy as hell, but it was also still kind of funny.
Yeah.
Because Gene's like, his human feet are better than mine.
Oh, Gene.
So she's still blocking this off. She doesn't want anybody to touch Mr. Goiter, and she's been standing there blocking it this whole time. And so then they go, the other kids leave, and she's still there. And the kids come back and they go, "Well, Tina, what are you doing?" And she goes, "I'm taking a break from standing because they went to go get lunch to go talk about stuff." And then the construction guys are on their way back, and she goes, "Don't you have anything else to talk about?" Because it wasn't very long. So Louise hatches this plan and grabs Teddy's bike lock for the bike that he doesn't have. Because she says that Teddy got the bike lock to inspire him to ride a bike.
Mm-hmm.
And so then she locks it around Tina's neck and puts the key down her throat, and she eats it. And so now she can't unlock herself. So as Felix is coming by with the developers, they see, he's like, "Here's where you can put this, here's where you can put that, and here's a girl tied up to a horse. Oh, don't look at that. Let's go get some snow cones." So he pushes the investor away, comes up and talks to the kids and says, "Hey kids, what are you doing? You shouldn't be doing this." And
I think it was a little more threatening than that.
Well, yeah, he's like, "What are you doing? Leave now or I'll make you leave."
Yeah, that's it.
And Tina's like, "Oh, do you have the ability to make 13-year-old girls poop out keys?" And then so Louise, of course, who's the perfect antagonist to everybody, goes, "This guy's trying to make my sister poop."
Girl pooper.
So he's frustrated about that, obviously, because now this is kind of driving a dent. It's putting spotlight where there shouldn't be any spotlight, because as we get back, what?
It's harder to sell.
It is. Well, and especially now that there's more attention being drawn to the wharf, because as the ferry comes back, and this is where we meet up with Bob, and the whole crew's met up again. Felix comes up and goes, "I have had a boring day. Nothing's going on. Just had myself a chill out day. And skipped a rock and all that." And Calvin's like, "Hey, Felix, you can tell the investors that we're going to sell." And then he notices that there's something going on over at the wharf, and there's a bunch of news trucks, and they're over there, and they see that Tina is, on the news because she's locked herself to the horse because she doesn't want the wharf, the carousel, the whole wharf to be sold. And Bob's already agreed that that's okay. Kelvin and Felix have already agreed. Felix makes a rousing speech to all the other people who work down on that Ocean Street, like the yarn person, which I thought that was really funny. I keep forgetting her name.
I don't remember it either.
Edith?
I see her.
I think it is.
Edith.
I think it's Edith.
Yep.
Because she's like, "How many of these condo people's percentage of their disposable income can be spent on yarn?" And Felix has no idea. And he goes, 45%. And she goes, "That's too low." But just
Mr. Fishoder, is this true? Are you selling the wharf?
Yes, it's...
Calvin, can I take this one?
What?
Hi, I'm Felix Fishoder, the other odor. Listen, folks, once those wealthy condo owners start patronizing your businesses, your disappointing, fruitless lives will be full of fruits, because you will be rich enough to buy fruit.
Yeah, sweet condo people money.
That's right.
That's right.
That's right.
That's right. Let's get their money. All right.
Rich people need yarn.
They do. So he calms down the mob after people were realizing that that it was going to be good for them, because then all these people are going to be able to buy more things. And so Bob has a change of heart because of the kids, because he sees Tina and how much it means to her, and how he remembers how much it means to a lot of people around area. So he's going to find Mr. Fishoder to go talk in private. And he goes, Fishoder, can I speak to you for a minute in private? Let's go. How are we going to ride? And I guess Louise is there, and she's like, hey, I've heard good things about the Scream-a-Cane. And Fishoder's like, okay, what the hell? So Gene and Fishoder and Louise and Bob all go on the Scream-a-Cane. And this is where Louise can finally get on the ride, because she's going on with Mr. Fishoder. And of course you don't say no to the boss man. So Mickey's like, hey, Mr. Fishoder, you're looking rich today. And then Louise goes, hey, we're the boss man, so lay off. And I love this because, again, Mickey's like, yep, safety second. That's always what I say. So then he's on the ride now, and he's convincing Fishoder not to sell. So he's like, I wanted nice things, but I don't even like nice things. Look at this shirt. It's my favorite shirt. And if we get condos, we would just look like everybody else. And the wharf is the heart of this town. It makes ours special. He gives this big old rousing speech, and Fishoder's like, yeah, okay. I guess you're right. Papa always said that people like things that go up and down and side to side and jiggle. So basically, Bob talking to him and then Fishoder going on the Scream-a-Cane were the reasons why he doesn't want to sell anymore. So Bob's happy, the kids are happy. Linda's not exactly happy at this moment, but she'll get over it.
I mean, Gene's not really happy at that moment either.
Well, he's not happy. Go
being
ahead.
on that roller coaster. Am I back at home in my bed yet?
Yeah, well, he peed himself.
Yeah, that's right. He did.
Like my pants are moist, but not wet.
But not wet.
But yeah, so basically, Tina thinks Dad saved the town, and Fanny's upset, and Felix has to go run after Fanny. And I thought this was pretty funny because Fanny goes, "You're not getting any of this, or even this." And I just like to imagine what 3 things she was trying to show Fanny, right, or trying to show Felix.
Or 7 bras.
Yeah. Sure. So Tina asks, so episode's wrapping up. Tina's like, hey, Dad, did you ever poop out a key?
Yes.
He says no. But do you remember what dice. He says, do you ever poop out dice? And she goes, well, okay, I'll figure it out. I feel like they'd be pretty similar. Pooping out a dice and pooping out a key.
Maybe if it was like a 10-sided die or something.
Perhaps.
Key might be a little pointier.
Mm-hmm.
Easier to get lodged and not want to come out.
Yeah, gross.
I don't want to think about it. It hurts to think about.
True, yeah. Well, it depends what kind of dice he was swallowing. Were they regular 6-sided die, or is it like an 8-sided die, a 10-sided die? I don't know. It doesn't say.
It's a D20.
Well, it actually would come out easier. That's less surface area around each side.
It's a whole lot bigger though.
Well, you can get smaller D20s. You don't have to get large ones.
I suppose.
I mean, D8s would be painful. Those ones have sharp edges. Those are like parallelograms everywhere.
Oh yeah, that's right. They are pointy, aren't they?
Well, I don't want one of those.
No, thank you. Pass. Hard pass.
So Felix is like, he comes up to them, and he's got a gun, and he's like, I'm glad you like this rotten wharf so much, because that's where you're going to find your rotten old bodies. And so, he's basically holding them hostage now at the end of the episode.
Sorry, I realized what you were trying to do was horribly wrong, and is that a gun?
Yep, it sure is. It's where I keep my bullets.
Okay, well, I'm gonna head out.
No.
Oh, he's doing that laugh.
I don't like that.
No.
Are you thinking of something funny from earlier today?
No, I'm laughing maniacally.
Okie dokie.
Glad you like this rotten old wharf so much, because it's where they're going to find your rotten old bodies.
Hey, I don't think you have a rotten old body.
I think he's talking to both of us, right?
No, can't be. You're the old one. Look at your face.
What?
Shut up! You're both old and you're both gonna die.
Well, so you did mean both of us.
Yeah.
Quiet, please.
And the episode ends with them being held at gunpoint, and we get another fun original song, which I think this makes up a little bit for not having opening stuff. But we get a very fun Linda song that's written and sung in the style of like James Bond style songs and credits. It's like if you've ever watched a James Bond movie, or if you've ever seen like even the second Austin Powers movie has something similar to this, like a song that's just, you can tell it's a spy song. The credits look like a James Bond opening credit sequence. And that kind of ends the episode with a to be continued. Like you said, it wraps up the story because they're not selling the wharf. But now
There's
Felix,
also like a hippie, flowy feel to it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I feel like there's tie dye, but it's like trippy tie dye.
Yeah, this is definitely a throwback to like 60s and 70s James Bond. Then at that point, but yeah, you're like you said, it wraps up the episode. And it leaves it so you could just watch this episode, but then you are also aware of what's happening in the following episode. So you know it's to be continued, and now you're like, well, what the heck's going to happen with Bob and Mr. Fishoder? Because they're being held at gunpoint. That's where the episode ends. Typically, this is where Bryan and I would kind of go through and look at anything on our notes that we missed, anything fun, because usually we don't talk too much about the jokes unless we talk about it during the preview. Was there anything that you can remember that we didn't hit that you'd like to talk about?
So when Bob and Felix go into that bathroom to chat, I was amused when they pan to Bob and he says, I really wish you weren't peeing right now. As they're having a conversation.
Yeah, that whole scene is pretty good because it also has the song that we talked about before we started recording, the Mr. Dance Floor that you like so much, because she's singing for, who is it, for Linda, I think.
She's sing for us
because she's talking about the dance club and the recording studio and all that stuff.
I'm a really good singer.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Jordan Peele does a fantastic. I mean, like I said, it sounds just like Jordan Peele in his skits that he did, and it's perfect.
I mean, it even kind of looks like him now that I see it.
Yeah.
I'm like picturing Jordan dressed up like a woman.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. So she's like, so Fanny, of course, is very self-centered because she's like, I got these. Because she goes, look what Felix got me. Or Felix bought me, and she goes,
blink.
Exactly. And Linda goes, your eyeballs? And then she goes, when the condo's going, he's going to build me a recording studio and a nightclub. And then so Linda, she goes, because I got a really good voice, and I'm going to sing at the nightclub. And Linda, of course, is like, I love nightclubs and singing. Sing me a song. And so then she sings, Mr. Dance Floor.
Who's it knocking on my door?
Ooh, it's Mr. Dance Floor. Everyone is looking fancy. Things are about to get fancy. I love that Linda goes, oh my God, I just almost started dancing.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, she's totally self-centered. The whole bras and the eyelashes. The eyelashes were made of weasel fur, just as a little side note. I don't know why that sounds painful. Or it doesn't sound normal.
Weasel fur on my eyes. Pass.
You want weasel fur on the eyes? Just lather it on your eyeballs.
Yes, that's where I want it.
I don't know how that would. I guess I don't know. I guess I don't know if weasel fur would make a good eyelash. aren't most synthetic eyelashes right now just plastic?
I don't know if they're
Guess I
like,
don't.
well, maybe it's one of those like the cultural things where, in Asia they eat animals that we keep as pets and we think
Sure.
it's gross. And they eat bugs. I don't know.
I am looking it up right now. So Amazon does sell 100% real mink fur lashes.
Huh.
So I'm wondering now if like mink and weasel are like the standard. I shouldn't say standard. Definitely not standard, but I wonder if that's not as uncommon as we think. It's
Might
$40
be.
though. Oof.
It's a lot for eyelashes.
Dollars for, I think it's just a pack of 4. So like you can wear it twice.
Or if you have 4 sets of eyelashes, then you're good to
Yeah.
go.
Yeah,
I
and then
don't.
the
I know what I
cheaper
mean.
ones are made out of like just fiber. Very close to mink hair. But not mink hair. So it's cruelty free, I suppose.
Right. Vegan friendly.
Vegan friendly. Can't wear the weasel on my eyes. Not today.
No weasels were harmed in the making of these eyelashes.
So I got 2 things then, real quickly. I've got when they pick up Fanny, and she talks about how she was just shopping, and she bought a dress that she's going to pull up, and she was looking to her butt. And she goes, it's a butt dress, and so Linda goes, butt dress, golly, which is just a big old play on words of Boutros Ghali.
I don't know what that is.
Boutros Ghali was a politician in Egypt. He was the Secretary General of the United Nations for a while.
Oh,
So
highbrow.
Boutros Ghali was, I think for like 4 years, he was the Security General of the United Nations. But yeah, so that was just a play on that.
Nice.
I had to make sure it was Egypt. I didn't know that it was that country. So that's just a little play on words. Bob's Burgers is always good about doing that, having fun with words, like especially with the burgers. Obviously, we can tell that all the time. And then near the end of, or maybe near the beginning, I forget when this is in their conversation that Bob is having with Mr. Fishoder. He says off the top, just off the cuff, "What do you think of loose women?" And Bob goes, "I like them." And I thought that was very out of character for Bob to say something like that.
Yeah, I agree. That was my reaction. I was like, he's not going to say, oh, he did say that.
And it wasn't, at least the way it was delivered, it didn't feel like it was him just placating or appeasing Mr. Fishoder. It sounded like a genuine answer to it because there was no thinking involved. There was no, it is hard sometimes with Bob's voice to kind of interpret when he's, either being sarcastic or just placating, but it didn't sound like it. It sounded like a genuine, like, I'm going to answer this question.
I agree.
So, I mean, I guess take it as you will. He could have just been playing to Mr. Fishoder to get him on his good side again, but it sounded like a genuine answer. And I don't have anything else on here. I don't know if you have anything else that you would like to discuss.
There was a was it when they were going up the roller coaster, and Bob's trying to convince Mr. Fishoder not to sell now after he's already decided to sell, and Mr. Fishoder says something about how he's going to bring Bob his laundry, and I was like, wait, what? Where's he going with this? And he's like, because you're so wishy-washy.
Yeah.
And I just loved the play on words there. Totally caught me off guard the first time I saw it.
Yeah, he called him a big fat washing machine man because he's so wishy-washy.
Yes, washing machine man. Yes.
Yeah, that whole ride was good because it's again, Mr. Fishoder's never been on it before, because it's his ride. Why would he go on his own rides?
Right. He knows how stable they are. So.
Yeah, and Bob's like, "Why did I think this would be a good place to talk?" And again, Fishoder's like, "Because you're an idiot, man, or you're an idiot." So I think that pretty much wraps up this episode review. Again, I just want to make a quick shout out to all the guest voices that we had because there were a ton. We had Kevin Kline, Mr. Fishoder. We had Zach Galifianakis as Felix, Bill Hader as Mickey, Jordan Peele as Fanny. We had we had the same crew of other voices. David Herman. We had Pamela Alden. I'm going to pull up who they were real quick because I don't remember who they were. Andy Kindler obviously was Mort. David Herman played the foreman, one of the foremen. Pamela Adlin played Olsen Benner. I don't remember who that was. Although she was the newscaster. Olsen Benner's the newscaster that was talking to Tina.
Yep.
I think that's it for the guest voices in this episode. But yeah, it's good to have some of the people come back. Obviously, it's always fun when Mr. Fishoder comes in, and now that Felix is a regular special character, it was fun to have him introduced. And then Mort's been in very few episodes now. It's starting. We talked about this last season, and it's even more apparent this season that it's really Teddy's taken over as the main. I don't want to say like the Ned Flanders to the Homer Simpson, but in the same sense, he kind of is, just in the amount of screen time that Teddy gets. He's not the antagonist that Ned is, but Ned is pretty much part of the Simpson family.
Yeah.
And so Teddy's there because Teddy's really part of the family. He tried to play uncle. He's always wanting to be with the Belchers and everything. So it's really so he obviously had to be in the episode. But then David Herman's in every episode. If he's not playing Mr. Frond, he's playing 16 other voices. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and pause again. We're gonna tally up the review because your review is actually gonna count this time.
Woo.
And we will come back with the numbers.
Hey, Mr. Fishoder, can I speak to you for a minute in private?
Yes, please. These people keep talking to me.
How about we go on a ride?
Hey, I heard good things about the Scream-a-cane.
Okay, what the hell?
Come on, Gene, we're going too.
I told you no roller coasters! The technology just isn't there yet!
Now here's a question for you. Who likes nightclubs with a Caribbean theme and a 29-year-old singer who happens to be my girlfriend?
It's me!
Hey, Mr. Fishoder. You're looking rich today, sir.
Hey, we're with the boss man, Mickey, so lay off!
Yep, safety second. That's what I always say.
Stop us! Stop us! You're terrible at your job!
We appreciate your feedback.
I'm gonna die and I never got to see Hall & Oates live!
So, you can't sell the wharf?
Really?
Yes.
Great! Hey, I have some laundry here. Maybe I'll just throw it into you, big fat washing machine man.
What?
'Cause you're wishy-washy. You just convinced me to sell the wharf.
Look, Mr. Fishoder, I was wrong. I got greedy.
I don't feel good.
Good!
I got caught up in having this nice place on the beach, selling burgers to, oh God, fancy rich people. Why did I think this would be a good place to talk?
'Cause you're an idiot!
All right, we are back. I have calculated the numbers. I had to bring Mr. Butlertron in for this one. We haven't had him back in a while. So he's all calculated. We're ready to go. I got 2 minutes on the clock. So what we do, Molly, for 2 minutes is we put the timer on. We talk about these individual parts. You've heard it before. We get down to 2 minutes and we stop. So hopefully we got through everything in that 2 minutes. You ready to go?
I am ready.
Sweet. All right, let me put 2 minutes on the clock. Ready and go. All right, episode fun bits. Really, it's the burger, saffron, saffloff burger, and then the ending credit sequence, which is the James Bond with the song. I gave that an 8. Originally, when we were talking, I was actually going to give it like a 4 because there was no there was no store, there was no exterminator, but I forgot that we added the credits to it. So the credits jumped it up literally 4 points. If it wasn't for
Really love that.
it was so. I love that James Bond type ending with that. So I gave that a 7 or an 8, excuse me.
I think I gave it a 7.
You did.
Yes. Okay, if I remember correctly.
Sure. Story, I gave an 8. I thought it was a very good story. I like a good A story, good B story, one that ties up at the end. It felt like a good solid story. So it gets an 8 for me.
And a 7 from me.
You gave it a 9.
9?
Yeah.
Jeez.
Do you need to write those down and we can start over?
Apparently I do.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean the story's fantastic. Like I said, it stands on its own. It's good. It's just a good story.
Sure. Humor, gave an 8. I laughed a lot. I definitely laughed plenty of times. I was, guffawing and enjoying a big old hearty chuckle. So which is good for this episode. So I gave that an 8.
There's a lot of good one-liners in there. Even if it's a little light on the Gene, we had a lot of Fanny in there.
You did.
And you're gonna have to tell me what I.
You gave that a 7.
7. Okay, that's where the 7 was. It was in there somewhere.
See, and then others we both gave 9. Others that includes all the voice cast, Jordan Peele coming back. We had all the fish odors in there. The songs that were there, the Nice Things Are Nice was fantastic, and then obviously Mr. Dance Floor, just was catchy. I was humming it while I was doing these numbers.
It's gonna be stuck in my head for the next few weeks.
Oh yeah,
it all the time.
And that's 2 minutes. Actually, it's a little bit over 2 minutes. But yeah, what's great is that actually in the next episode there's another Fanny song that we get to hear. But you gotta wait on that, Burgers and Fries fans, because we are not doing that one today. Originally, like I said, we were going to do back-to-backs, but with Bryan being out, I wanted him to at least be around for the season finale of this episode, but I'm glad we were able to get one done, so he's not, so we're not falling behind. We want to make sure we have one out per week for you guys, and I cannot thank Molly enough for coming on to do this with us. It was fantastic. I'm glad that you were able to make time at such a late hour. That just means I got to edit pretty hardcore in the morning, get that out. Unfortunately, this week is not going to be out early for our patrons, but we'll put a special Vault episode out from one of our old podcasts, so you can enjoy that for the weekend. But yeah, I think that's going to do it for this episode. Next week is the season finale, as I said, episode 22. What is the name of that episode? I just had it up and I lost it. Yeah, this one is Wharf House, and that one is World Wharf 2, I think.
World
Wharf 2, The Wharfening.
Yes.
And it's basically just how Bob destroys the town, part 2. So the whole cast will come back. It's nice, though, because we did end this one on a very nice note. There's nothing that's hanging in the balance other than Bob and Kelvin's lives. And we'll see what happens next week. Is there going to be more Bob's Burgers next week? After that, is our podcast over? Probably not, seeing as there's another 5 seasons we still got to do. But yeah, that's going to do it for this. If you're listening to us not from where you download podcasts, you can get us on iTunes and Google Music and Stitcher and TuneIn and Podbean and anywhere you want to get your podcast. Just look up Burgers and Fries. We are the weekly Bob's Burgers Companion podcast. If you really, really, really like us, you can find us on Patreon at patreon.com/burgers fries. Patreon.com/burgers and fries. There we've got some special stuff for our patrons. You can come check us out and get our back catalog of other special podcasts that we used to do. We have some movie reviews that we did with some special guests, for like a couple professional baseball players that came on and did one. It was a real treat. So it's on there for our patrons. Also, we're on YouTube now. Not video, but our audio's on YouTube. So if you just go to YouTube, type in Burgers and Fries Podcast, you'll find our audio. It's getting posted there on the weekly basis. And I think that's going to do it. I want to thank you again so much for tuning in to listening. I want to thank Molly again so much for coming on. For Bryan, I'm Ryan. Don't you tell me no lies.